That's the one thing about our audience. They always want a new guy to break through the glass ceiling.
All you have to do is just be real.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. I am the jabroni beating, pie eating, trailblazing, eyebrow raising, talking is done, you're out of your class, no sleep till Brooklyn, the Rock whips your ass. Woo!
I wish you and King would quit talking.
Welcome to Around the Ring, episode 13 for today, Monday, March 9th, 2015. My name is Dave, and if you didn't remember to do so, I hope everyone turned their clocks forward today. I just got to say, daylight savings time is one of the worst ideas ever. I freaking hate it. Because it makes no point. In this day and age, daylight savings time, I swear to God, costs folks more money. Because that extra hour of sunlight in the evening, when during the summertime it's hot as hell, guess what? We're going to have our air conditioners pumping for longer. Had that extra hour of sunlight been happening in the early morning hours when people were just in the process of getting up, you know, air conditionings wouldn't be pumping as much. Just saying. Call me crazy. But you know what? Hey, before we get into this week's wrestling news and my thoughts on what's going on, I just wanted to talk about something really freaking awesome. The Shoot Wrestling Network. This is a network that launched yesterday. You can find it over at shootwrestlingnetwork.weebly, which is weebly.com. Again, that's shootwrestlingnetwork.weebly.com. You can also follow these nice folks on the Twitter. The handle is @ShootNetwork or Facebook, facebook.com/Shoot Wrestling Network. This is a 24-hour online radio station that has nothing but shows about professional wrestling. And yours truly was asked to be part of the family. It was a huge honor. I was very pleased to be part of this exciting new project. And so there is now another place that you can find Around the Ring. So not only can you find Around the Ring on our homepage, aroundtheringok.wordpress.com, or on sparkradionetwork.com/aroundtheringok, or on K98talk.com. You can also find us on the Shoot Wrestling Network, shootwrestlingnetwork.weebly.com. And you know what? I'm joining tons of great shows on here. There's another wrestling podcast, Bite That, Wrestling Ropes Break, Pro Wrestling Nation, Marking Out, Monday Night Carlo, Sincere Shootin', Raw Cap, Wrestling with Ideas, Shoot Wrestling Podcast itself, the namesake of the network, and the Wednesday Night War. It's a great bunch of shows. Listening to it a whole lot yesterday, listened to it a bit this morning. Some good stuff, and I expect that this is going to be something that just continues to grow and grow and grow. So thank you very much, everyone at Shoot Network, for bringing Around the Ring on board. I really appreciate it, and hoping this is a huge success, and because it's really cool. It's the first 24-hour professional wrestling online radio station. I mean, there are tons of sports radio stations out there and all this kind of stuff, but never before had there been one all about the pro wrestling, as some of the Southerners likes to say, or as Vince McMahon likes to say, because apparently he hates the word wrestling. So go check it out. It's freaking awesome. And let me know what you guys think. Speaking of websites, we'll get this out of the way real quick. You can follow me on Twitter at AroundTheRingOK. You can also like us on the Facebook, facebook.com/AroundTheRingOK. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or anything like that, please shoot me an email, aroundtheringok@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you guys. This week, it was really kind of weird. I was coming into the show, coming in like Saturday, thinking, what the hell am I going to talk about this week? And of course, there's the whole Bill DeMott situation, which we'll get into. But I was thinking about the shows of the week, and Raw wasn't bad. NXT was great. Lucha Underground was great. What little bit I watched of SmackDown was pretty good. And normally SmackDown is a show I watch every week, and generally speaking, I think SmackDown is a more enjoyable show, or I enjoy it more than Raw, if nothing else because it has better matches. But, I was thinking, man, there's not really a whole lot to talk about show-wise. There was the great segment with Paul Heyman about to lose his poop on Raw that was really good. Jon Stewart on Raw was fantastic. There was some really good stuff on Lucha Underground with Alberto El Patron, the former Alberto Del Rio, really coming out of his shell. I'll also get to this, but I was never impressed with that guy in WWE, and he's on fire now. And then in NXT, there was that great stuff between Kevin Owens and Alex Riley. So that was some good stuff, but nothing really jumped out at me other than that. I mean, it was like I'm watching it, I'm enjoying it, but trying to sit back and think, well, what the hell am I going to talk about this week? Nothing was really jumping out at me. So I was, surfing the webs, as I unfortunately spend too much time doing, and looking at different stories. And there were pretty much kind of three big things have come out this week. The Bill DeMott situation, the NXT shows in Ohio, and the fact that the WWE is really taking a hard look at the Ring of Honor roster. And so those are the things we're going to kind of talk about this week. I guess first and foremost, let's go ahead and get into Bill DeMott. Most of you probably already know the situation. Bill DeMott was a trainer, the head trainer for NXT. He used to be a wrestler in WCW, went under the name Hugh Morris, also apparently went under the name Hugh G. Rection. Whoever came up with that should have been shot. Beyond that, I know really nothing of his in-ring career. His most notable moment in ring in WCW is he was the guy to face Bill Goldberg on Goldberg's debut match on Monday Nitro. And he did a good job making Goldberg look strong. He was part of Kevin Sullivan's stable, which the name of it really escapes me. He was a C+ player at absolute best. Low card, low mid card guy. Wasn't very good in the ring. Was just never that awful impressive. And when WCW was bought by WWE, he ended up coming over, and really from there, I don't know if he did anything in the ring, because that was kind of the time when I wasn't watching. But then he did take a big part in the developmental system. My understanding is before NXT he did work for a little bit. It was either in FCW or in Ohio Valley Wrestling, or even in some other group. I can't remember all the details. Solid Monster on his show yesterday kind of talked a lot about that. But he became the head trainer, and he's also been featured in a lot of WWE documentaries, interviewed a lot. He was in the Monday Night Wars a lot, being interviewed, and he always came off as a smug, arrogant, just prick. And like, I'm so bad, blah, blah, blah. Well, he had an absolutely forgettable career, and he always just came off as one of those kind of good old boy douchebags. The kind of guy that you could see, maybe, he was in high school, he was the asshole, ugly jock on the football team that hung out with the cool kids because he was on the football team, but was basically just this a meat suit. He was there to make the pretty guys on the team look good. And anyway, a couple of years ago, a former, someone who was under contract at the time, sent a lengthy letter to WWE Human Resources with allegations about behavior of Bill DeMott. And it eventually leaked online. And this last week, on Thursday's edition of Wrestling Soup, Anthony Missionary Thomas actually read the letter in its entirety. And it's pretty lengthy, and it went some real specific allegations of abuse, physical and mental, and a hostile work environment that Bill DeMott created. And a lot of it was disgusting. There was one guy who had a concussion, and Bill DeMott smacked him on the head as he was concussed. Rusev at one point had just had a neck surgery, and Bill DeMott grabbed him by his neck and ripped a shirt off of him. There was some dude who had a broken leg, and DeMott kicked him in the broken leg. He would, if someone was injured, he would tell them basically that they're wimps and that they don't deserve their shot if they're going to get hurt. And he would pester people, make fun of them, and he would also make a bunch of very politically incorrect jokes. That stuff doesn't quite bother me as much, so because you know what, I say some crazy crap, and I've said some very politically incorrect, crazy stuff, and you know, my whole rationale is everyone needs to be made fun of, and I make fun of myself worse than anyone could ever make fun of me, and you know, I just like, no one is untouchable, and everyone gets to be picked at some point. Not maliciously, but, you know, for fun, for just joking around. And if I ever upset people or if it becomes malicious, I apologize profusely, because my intent is never to be malicious. Based on everything that I've heard, stories from various wrestlers, from this piece, this letter that was written to WWE HR, Bill DeMott was malicious. There's this whole idea of this good old boy, the old boy system, and he was part of that, and you just had to prove yourself to be let in, almost like being let into a fraternity after hazing. And that's messed up, and it really shows you some serious problems in WWE, in that on the one hand, they want to act like they're this big corporate entity, because they are. They're a huge corporation. They have shareholders that they have to placate, and they want to play that. But on the inner workings, they're still doing this whole, we are a, you know, old boy wrestling organization, fraternity type of thing. We're going to slap each other on the ass, and we're going to haze the hell out of people, and we're going to make your life suck. So in order for you to understand how lucky you are to be there. And that's messed up. And what it does is it creates environments where people are uncomfortable. It creates environments where people are scared and they're unable to succeed. And, you know, it is a wonder that WWE has had problems with success in the last 5 to 10 years. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that the people running things behind the scenes are assholes. I'm just saying. So, this letter originally came out a couple years ago. Apparently there was an investigation, which, according to some, Bill DeMott actually is the one who was over the investigation. WWE officially came out and had said, hey, we investigated this 2 years ago, there's nothing to it. More things came out, more former WWE employees brought things to light, and eventually Bill DeMott stepped down. I'm sure what happened is someone in the higher-ups, maybe even Triple H, went to him and said, look, you've got to go. So we can either fire you or you can quit and say that it's your decision to leave. But you are leaving. You're not staying. You just can't. And that was the right thing to do. That guy can't be there. He is... he's destroying things, and it's, you know, in a way it's amazing that NXT is such a great product considering this guy was behind the scenes of it. Well, he's gone, and he has been replaced by Jason Albert, the former Tenzai, who has worked all over the world, and he's also been doing commentary, and he is fantastic on NXT commentary. And so him taking over, apparently the locker room is ecstatic. He's a very well-respected guy. He's a guy who knows Japanese styles, Mexican styles, things from all around the world, and he's worked in WWE, so he's going to be the kind of guy who can bring in people from other organizations from that know other styles and help them learn the WWE style and bring and adapt what they do well and bring it into this new environment, because that's a big thing. WWE is very different from every other wrestling organization, and it has been since the 1980s, since really Vince McMahon took over from his father and really tried to make this thing more, sports entertainment than professional wrestling. So this is something this is going to be a good thing. I think the talent is going to do much better. I think you're going to see more success, more excelling out of these people, and hopefully maybe even some better translation to the main roster for some of these folks, because for every Bray Wyatt, for every members of the Shield, for every page that we have that goes to the main roster and does well, there's Adam Rose and Bo Dallas and Big E Langston and Xavier Woods who just don't do well. Oh, and I forgot to mention Rusev in the group that is doing well. So it should, in the long run, be a good thing. Lord knows that the locker room in WWE that needs some improvement in the way they feel about things, and having a head trainer that isn't a raging cockmunch, I think will help. So that is a big plus. And for Bill DeMott, who is apparently heading back to teaching kindergarten, according to a story I saw, which may have been on a kayfabe website. I never actually clicked on the link. It was in my Facebook feed, so I'm going to go on a limb and guess that was a satire site, a satire story, because, Jesus, man, if this guy's a complete a-hole to young adults, can you imagine what he'd be like to children? And I don't know the guy. Maybe he's not a bad dude. Okay, I can't imagine that he's not a bad dude. He just seems like an absolute, complete douche waste. But, again, I don't know him. I'm not going to judge him. He does sound like he behaved like a complete asshole, though. So, other things this week, we had NXT leave Florida for the first time. They've done house shows, in and around Florida, and they've obviously done all their tapings there at Full Sail University. But they did a couple of shows in Cleveland, Ohio, in conjunction with this event that Arnold Schwarzenegger was doing, and Triple H got some award there. But there were these two events, one of which was filmed for the network. And honestly, both of these events should have been filmed for the network. There was a video that went around of the second night. The main event was Cesaro against Finn Balor. And someone recorded the match and posted it online. And it was great. I mean, my God, it's Cesaro and Finn Balor. Of course it's going to be a great match. But that's the kind of thing the network needs to be showcasing. And honestly, the network really needs to talk up more things like NXT. Instead of just yammering on and on about, $9.99, which thank God they've stopped doing, or they don't do as much. They need to talk about the content that's on there and the great things that you can see. And really, NXT is something they need to push. Because for those fans out there who are the big-time indie fans that aren't watching NXT, that haven't gotten the network to watch NXT, those are the people they need to go after, because it's kind of their core audience that they're wanting anyway. But there were these shows in Ohio. Apparently they sold out very quickly. The clips I've seen from them were just, the crowd is on fire as always. I mean, it's an NXT crowd, so they're going to go apeshit. There was a part where Triple H was actually talking up NXT at one of the events, and it's so funny in NXT, Triple H is a babyface. He can do no wrong because he's put together this amazing product. Versus on Raw and SmackDown, where he's this awful heel. So it's such a funny difference. But the crowd was going apeshit, and there's talks of more tours around the country. And that's amazing, because if you think about it, if NXT can start touring, one, it gets these folks more exposure. It gets these folks in front of more eyes, and it gets them more experience doing things in WWE rings, and will hopefully help them transition to the main roster and be successful on the main roster. And there's talk of maybe this going to New York. And the real buzz is, or a lot of people have mentioned, and I think Solid Monster was the first one, was the fact that they should head to the Hammerstein Ballroom, which is years ago where Raw used to tape when it first started. ECW had some of its first, in fact, I think its first show on TNN, which is now Spike, was filmed in that center. And that if my memory serves, that was the Dudley Boys' last match in ECW, and they were defending the ECW Tag Team Championship against Tommy Dreamer, and it was basically a 2-on-1 handicap match. And then out of the middle of nowhere, Raven returns and helps secure the win. And Raven and Tommy Dreamer, who were huge rivals, were the new ECW Tag Team Champions. It was a great moment. It was fun to watch, and that is the kind of building that I think would be absolutely perfect for an NXT show. TNA does really well in there. Ring of Honor does well in there. It's a great room. I would love to see a show there someday. But NXT in there would just be off the hook. And, I talk all the time about how much I love NXT because it is really good. It is. Simple fact of the matter is this. The two best professional wrestling shows every week, week in and week out, are NXT and Lucha Underground. Leaps and bounds better than everything else. Really, you could kind of put Ring of Honor in there at third. Despite Ring of Honor's production values, its in-ring work is always phenomenal. But Lucha Underground and NXT are far better than Raw, SmackDown, and Impact. And I actually even tried to watch a little bit of Impact this week, and I couldn't. I did see the Drew Galloway segment where he went off on this tirade about wrestling, and it was interesting because he was talking to the Beatdown Clan, and it was really a rant on the state of professional wrestling and kind of a rant against WWE. So it didn't quite fit with the Beatdown Clan, but it worked. It was great. Again, here's a guy who WWE did exactly jack squat with, and he was a freaking joke. 3MB, one of the biggest jokes ever in WWE history. He leaves, he shows up other places, and holy crap, it's this whole new side of him. And he's on fire, and that's awesome. He just like Del Rio or El Patron. And it's amazing that you get these guys, and not everyone is going to succeed in WWE. But you get these guys who are in WWE and languish, and then leave and do extremely well. And it's really, I think, starting to show the changing nature of professional wrestling. And even though wrestling is nowhere near as popular as it was in the 90s and the early 2000s, guys are finding ways to make money because there is buzz around small events. You've got Lucha Underground with a huge buzz. You've got NXT, even though it's still part of WWE, but it's its own thing at this point, has this huge buzz. Ring of Honor shows have buzz. New Japan Pro Wrestling, lots of buzz. Tommy Dreamer's House of Hardcore, lots of buzz. So you've got all of these different places where guys can go and work. And even TNA, even though, anymore you work in TNA, and that's not the only place that you work. All of the TNA folks are, they worked, a lot of them worked at the most recent House of Hardcore show. They work in many different places because TNA is really a part-time organization at this point. But wrestlers are finding out that they can make a living working places other than WWE. And that's fantastic. It's great that people can go to Ring of Honor and work Ring of Honor indie shows and, also maybe work New Japan Pro Wrestling and make a really good living. Look at AJ Styles. AJ Styles is a perfect example. Sure, he didn't come from WWE, but, he came from TNA, and when he left TNA, he hit the indie market. He eventually went to Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling. And he is making apparently more money now than he did in TNA. And in TNA, he was making a good $300,000 to $400,000 a year. Now, some can argue whether or not he's worth it. I think if he is making that same amount of money by doing indies, Ring of Honor, and New Japan, I think it just says he is worth it. And the fact that TNA didn't have the kind of financial success with them that these other places are seemingly having, and he's helping people bring butts into seats. I think that is an absolute indictment on TNA and not on AJ Styles, because there are people out there that think AJ Styles is this great talent, but he's not a draw. Well, in TNA he wasn't a draw because TNA is not a draw. TNA has always done a piss poor job of marketing themselves, and this is coming from, again, a guy who is relatively new to all of TNA, but I've gone back, I've learned some of the history, and I've watched the product a little bit here and there. I've watched stuff on YouTube, and it's obvious to tell that these are people that either intentionally just trying to be like WWE, whether it's intentional or not, and it's not working, and it's almost like they were really trying to just be WCW. And WCW had success, and then they lost it because they couldn't manage things right, and because they, again, the whole boy system hurt them, and bad management, bad creative, and all sorts of stuff. And TNA is actually comprised of a lot of those people, and it certainly has that feel, and so that they're constantly languishing. But you get this guy AJ Styles, who homegrown TNA talent, quite possibly the best wrestler alive today, leaves TNA and has all of this huge success around the world. Two-time IWGP heavyweight champion. That is impressive. The only thing, I'd love to see him get a run with the Ring of Honor title. And I know right now he sees himself as a Ring of Honor, as a New Japan guy. And in fact, one of the shows on the Shoot Wrestling Network, when I was listening yesterday, and for the life of me, I can't remember which one, and I'm so sorry, guys, for forgetting which show it was. But they had an interview with AJ Styles, and he talked about how he doesn't consider himself a free agent. He considers himself a New Japan guy, and New Japan is his top priority. And he's doing extremely well, and he's having the best matches of his career. And in fact, last week on that Ring of Honor pay-per-view, he had a great match against, was it Matt Sydal? No? Son of a bitch. Okay, I've slept since then. Had a pretty stressful week at work, so forgive me for not remembering. But he had a hell of a match, and has had just nothing but great matches. So you look at AJ Styles, and this, he is now the kind of the prototype for the fact that you can have success outside of the WWE. And he was never a WWE guy. But then you look at, say, Alberto Del Rio, or now Alberto El Patron. He left WWE, went to AAA, and was on fire. Became their world champion, or their mega champion, or whatever they called it. Shows up at Ring of Honor on fire. He had a hell of a match for the TV title against Jay Lethal that he lost. Suspiciously, though, there was obviously some outside of the ring interference type of thing, but hell of a good match. And then he shows up in Lucha Underground, and he's treated like a king, and the charisma that this guy has. And you watched him in WWE, and he was boring. Oh my God. It was like watching a tree stump. It was that boring. But he's incredible, and he's doing so well. He's a AAA champion. He's eyeing the Lucha Underground Championship. In fact, in this week's episode, there was a segment with him and Prince Puma, and he told Puma, "Hey, if you end up holding on to that title, I'm coming for it." We already know he's gunning for a Ring of Honor championship. Well, you know what would be really cool is if he would be able to capture and hold the Ring of Honor, AAA, and Lucha Underground titles all at the same time. That would be a nice big middle finger to Vince McMahon. And he's so much fun to watch. His promos are electrifying. The whole thing is just outstanding, and it's great. It's been so much fun to watch him work. So, excuse me. He's showing that there is potential for success outside of WWE. Drew Galloway, the former Drew McIntyre, same thing. He ended up going to TNA, but he's doing tons of work in England, so TNA is his part-time thing anyway. So he's having success, and it's really, really showing folks that, hey, there's tons of opportunity outside of the WWE. Now, the interesting kind of almost counter to that is right now, with the expanding success of NXT, WWE is eyeing a lot of top independent stars to bring to NXT to help fill out that roster. Specifically, they're looking at a lot of Ring of Honor stars. And someone actually asked Maria Kanellis, who used to be a WWE diva, if she would be interested in going to TNA, and her response was, hell yeah. And, you know, I think if you brought the Kingdom, her, Michael Bennett, Adam Cole, Matt Taven, brought those three into NXT, especially if you brought them in as a unit, oh, that would be fantastic. You know, there are lots of guys in Ring of Honor that you could bring into NXT that would just be outstanding. But this, you know, begs the question, is WWE eventually going to buy out Ring of Honor? Are they going to put them out of business by taking so much of their talent? Because, I mean, look at all the guys that Ring of Honor helped really cultivate over the years that eventually went on to WWE. CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins, El Generico, i.e. Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens. All these people were in Ring of Honor at one point in time, had huge success there, and moved on to WWE. Some of them are in NXT, some of them are on the main roster. But that just shows that the WWE, and specifically Triple H, are really looking at these, you know, non-prototype WWE stars for potential. Now, granted, a lot of times they get to the main roster and guys who are the prototypes, i.e. a Roman Reigns, or to some extent a prototype heel like Rusev, are the ones that get these big pushes. But in NXT, you've really got an indie fan's wet dream of talent, and they're doing phenomenally well. So the possibility of some of the Ring of Honor guys getting over there, and you know, maybe even they'd get the stick out of their ass and rehire Matt Sydal, the former Evan Bourne, another guy, former WWE guy, who's now doing really well for himself outside of WWE. And again, I think a lot's going to change in kind of the corporate culture and the way things are looked at once Vince McMahon leaves. His Triple H is, for as much of a you know, smug, arrogant dick that he portrays on Raw and SmackDown, the more and more I watch the way that NXT runs and the things he does and says about NXT, the more I think that this man is truly a you know, he's a smart. He is a smart mark. He is an indie wrestling fan. I mean, just look at the people he signed, and look at the person who's in contract, you know, he's talking about signing right now, Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe is in Ring of Honor at the moment, and he's going to have a shot at the Ring of Honor title, which will be awesome. Him and Jay Briscoe, I bet, are going to have a great match. But after, I think, April or so, it's either April or May, he's no longer scheduled for any events because he is going to be trying out for WWE. Triple H has been a fan of Samoa Joe's for years, and if Samoa Joe comes over, that could possibly open the door for more TNA talent, because there is the stink of TNA that hurts a lot of people. That certainly hurt AJ Styles. But if they bring in Samoa Joe, if he does well, and if guys like Finn Balor and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville are heading up to the main roster soon, they're going to need to fill out the NXT roster with more talent. And not only that, not just for the going on the road, which they need more talent for that, but also for their shows at Full Sail. They need a good roster, and if a lot of these guys are heading up to the main roster, they're going to need to fill those spots, and Samoa Joe is going to be a good person to fill that. It does really beg the question, if they're really interested in Samoa Joe, why not AJ Styles? And I don't have an answer for that. I really don't know, other than the fact that AJ Styles, at this point in his life, just really needs more money than they would be willing to offer somebody coming in fresh, or what they see as fresh. But I think if Samoa Joe gets in there and does really well, I think other TNA folks are going to have a better chance. I mean, will we ever see Eric Young in NXT? Will we ever see Bobby Roode in NXT? Probably not. I would love it if we did. I would love it if, EC3 got there. And in fact, if it was up to me, WWE would buy TNA and just bring in a bunch of the really good TNA folks. Bring in Magnus, Eric Young, Bobby Roode, Austin Aries, The Wolves, EC3, Bram, James Storm, and there are a few of the divas. I would bring, or the knockouts, whose names I can't remember, but bring those guys in. Bring them into NXT. And can you imagine the matches? Oh man, Kevin Owens against, I don't know, Bram, or say Sami Zayn against Eric Young. Oh, that would be awesome. But that would, bring those guys in. It's not going to happen, not anytime soon. But if Samoa Joe does well, and hopefully get rid of some of the TNA stink so that WWE isn't afraid to hire TNA folks, then I think that could be a really, really good thing. It'd be a good thing for those wrestlers. It would be a good thing for wrestling, because there is this whole batch of talent that they have just refused to look at because of where they are. So, yeah, the only couple of highlights and shows this week that I wanted to talk about. The continued shenanigans of R-Truth in regards to the Intercontinental title is great. He had some great moments on Raw. He had some great moments on SmackDown. And I think he's really funny. I'm really enjoying those shenanigans. That's a lot of fun. The stuff between Alex Riley and Kevin Owens down in NXT is phenomenal. That is just really, really good stuff. Also in NXT, the Adam Rose Tyler Breeze match, the match itself wasn't that awful great, but Tyler Breeze, and in fact I used a picture of this in this week's graphic for the episode, when he left the ring he was carrying his selfie stick and he had to use it to part the rosebuds so he could get around them. It was hilarious. Lucha Underground had some really good stuff. The El Patron Tejano match was really good. And it was, another solid week of wrestling. Tyson Kidd and Cesaro had a couple of really good matches. Of course they're going to have good matches. But we're still coming up to WrestleMania, and the build-up has sucked. And at this point, the thing that is, I think, going to steal the show, or has the potential to really steal the show, is going to be that Intercontinental title ladder match. Now, the whole idea of Cody Rhodes or Stardust and Goldust being inserted into that doesn't really appeal to me, but if we're looking at Bad News Barrett, Dean Ambrose, Luke Harper, R-Truth, Daniel Bryan, Dolph Ziggler, just those 7 guys, I mean, that, Jesus Christ, it's going to be awesome. So that's what, more than anything else with WrestleMania, I'm looking forward to that, looking forward to the tag title match. And that's really about, I mean, there's some other potential matches that are going to be really good. In fact, someone had written out a card and talked about how it's, it's actually, when you look at it on paper, the card looks really good. It's just, the build-up has sucked, and WWE has done a piss-poor job this year building up this card, which is hilarious considering this is the big bad mamma jamma. This is it, man. This is what they bet everything on, and you sure couldn't tell by the way it's been built up. But maybe, hey, they got rid of Bill DeMott, and with the success of NXT, maybe bringing in some more talent, maybe it'll turn around. I mean, we've still got a few weeks, and hopefully things with Brock Lesnar will work out. Hopefully WWE is able to get a new contract with him, one in which he actually shows up and it works on a regular basis, and not every week. We don't need to see him every week, but more often than we see him now. So maybe all that happens, and that would be awesome. But you know what? That's kind of about it for this week. Again, hey, make sure to check out the Shoot Wrestling Network, shootwrestlingnetwork.weebly.com. You can listen to episodes of yours truly, along with a whole bunch of other great shows. Anytime, man. Hey, if you're like, I really want to listen to some wrestling podcasts, but I'm not sure where to go, shootwrestlingnetwork.weebly.com. I would check that out. Hey, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please send them to me. I'd love to get them. Maybe someday have a mailbag section or set of the part of the show. Because right now I feel like no one loves me, but that's okay. I'll keep trucking. But if you do have anything you want to send it to aroundtheringok@gmail.com. Make sure to follow us on Twitter @aroundtheringok. Give us a like over on Facebook, aroundtheringok. No, shit. It's not that. Sorry. Brain's not working today. Hey, see, in my defense, I've just re-enrolled. I'm going back to school. That starts this week. And so I've got studying I'm going to be doing the rest of today. Yay. Which actually I'm looking forward to because it's about time I finish my stupid bachelor's degree. That's a whole other story. Anywho, facebook.com/aroundtheringok. Also make sure to check out our homepage, aroundtheringok.wordpress.com. And aside from the Shoot Wrestling Network, you can listen to us on K98talk.com or over on the Spark Radio Network, which our page there is sparkradionetwork.com/aroundtheringok. And you know what? That is it. We will be back here next Monday for another episode of Around the Ring. Until then, hey, be safe out there, everybody. Hope everyone has a great week. And as the great Jerry Springer always says, take care of yourselves and each other.
You've been listening to Around the Ring on the Spark Radio Network.
All you have to do is change your point of view. And
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. Damn! Woo!
This sucks more than anything that I've ever fucked before.
What? It's for charity.